when a problem is common, there's a lot of people working on it. Does Germany have salsa? It has its flaws, but all geniuses do. Hello everyone, I'm Zack Klapman, co-host of The Smoking Tire, part-time contributor to Road and Track, and former producer of Car Things on Television, which died because they were on television. Today we're talking about this, the 2005 E46 BMW M3. I know what you're thinking. Zack, don't you own a 2002 BMW M3? Isn't this typecasting? Don't you want to do something else, like drive a tuk-tuk or maybe play a monster truck in an off-Broadway play? Yes, I want to do all of those things, but I'm excited to drive this car because it actually has a lot of the same parts I have on my own car, and it has a few additional ones I don't have. So in a way, I get to test drive my car from the future if I treated it better. So at the end of today, I will either be happy with the way my car is, or I'll go home and start shopping. The E46 M3 was produced by BMW from 2000 to 2006. They made 85,000 of them worldwide. 63,000 of those came to North America, and of those, over 3,000 came in this jet black with a black Nappa leather interior. This is not a rare car, and I'm going to tell you why that's a good thing. First, it's not a museum piece. You're not going to be afraid to drive it, road trip it, daily it if you want to. Second, when a car is very common, parts are very common. And you might need some of those because there are parts on this car that are known for supporting the repair market. These cars are more expensive to own than some domestic cars or Japanese cars, but these were expensive to buy. New, they started around $51,000, which is about 80 grand in today's money. And anything that's expensive to buy is going to be expensive to maintain. It's complicated, it's German. It's at the forefront of technology and motor building and a bunch of other things we're going to get into. But that stuff's complicated. It's going to break. Incredibly, $51,000 in 2005 is about 80 grand today. And a new M3 starts at $76,000. So if you do the math, they're getting cheaper. No, I'm not on the toilet. I'm back here because the M3 badge is back here. That is a very new looking badge, very nice. I'm sitting back here because I want to talk to you about the history of the M3 itself, and this is a visual aid for that. As is true with most great road-going sports cars, racing was the beginning. The M3 was a homologation car. BMW built it in 1986 to go into the DTM Championship to race against Mercedes 190e 2.3 Cosworth. Both were very quick cars. BMW ended up winning 2 manufacturers' titles. Mercedes only won 1 of them. Maybe that's why they stopped putting manual transmissions in their good sports sedans. I'm just asking questions. DTM stands for Deutsche Produktionswagen Meisterschaft, which is the German production car championship. I hope I said that right, because I do not speak German. That little Frankenfeud gave us the M3 lineage, a series of cars that has basically been the benchmark for sports sedans and coupes that cost under $100,000. Any two-door car that came out starting in basically 1987, all the way up to recent times, was measured against the M3. Could it ride as well on the road? Could it handle as well? Was it as balanced? Was it as fun to drive? Was it as usable? Those are all questions that get asked, and in so many comparisons, over so many decades, the winner was usually one of these things. After the E30, we got the E36. It had 6 cylinders instead of the previous 4. The E36 is one of my favorite cars to look at. They make great driver's cars. Ignore the ergonomics. Things fall off of them. Not a big problem. But in the United States, we got a weaker engine than they got in Europe. And that made us all really sad. They didn't do that with this car. Everyone got the same excellent S54. Europe also got the CSL, which we didn't get. But otherwise, we all got the same engine. Now, this 2005 does not have the competition package. That came with a couple of handling goodies and a different steering ratio. But this car does have more go-fast parts than any dealership would comfortably sell you. The engine is the S54, an amazing 3.2-liter inline-6, high-performance engineering brilliance. It has its flaws, but all geniuses do. It makes 333 horsepower at 7,900 RPMs. It redlines at 8. How cool is that? 270 pound-feet of torque roughly, and the best part is that unlike the E36, everyone in the world got the same S54. So we didn't feel left out here in the United States, unless you bring up the CSL, because we were left out of buying that, yeah. A couple of things make this engine special. First, 6 individual throttle bodies, commonly referred to as ITBs. What that means is that each cylinder has its own butterfly letting air into it. So in most cars, you have one throttle body near the air box, and then there's a long pipe, and then the air goes to all the valves in the cylinders. And the air has to travel a really long way to get there. With this, you have atmospheric pressure pushing up against those little butterflies. And so when those butterflies open, the air can shoot right into the cylinder. It doesn't have to travel a long distance. This is why this car and cars like it have such good throttle response. Think of the engine like a stadium, and air is the crowd. A normal car with one throttle body has one gate. So everyone has to go in that one gate and then go down all the aisles to their seats, right? With a car like this, you have 6 gates. Crowd can stack up, and then when those gates all open at the same time, they get to their seats much more quickly. Another cool thing about this engine, although it is also a problematic area, is the double Vanos system. That's BMW's variable valve timing technology. For the E46 M3 in the United States, we had a single Vanos system. So that would adjust the intake cam profile between one of 2 positions. It was very binary, on or off. Do you want mild salsa or 3 flushes hot? With the double Vanos system, it can adjust the intake and exhaust cam profiles continuously. So you can get mild salsa or hot salsa or any amount of in-between salsa. Does Germany have salsa? Being able to continually adjust those systems lets the engine make way more power than it would without them. They're more efficient and they burn cleaner. Downside of this amazing technology is it's complicated, and complicated things tend to break, especially when they're from Germany. Look, credit where it's due. German cars have usually been at the forefront of performance. They raise the bar by which all other passenger cars tend to be measured. But there's a price for that. Cars are expensive, the cars are complicated. Complicated things break. Inside this crazy metal box, there are so many gears and lines and sensors and seals, and a lot of those are known for going bad. Some of them went bad within the first 50,000 miles of ownership. So if you think that people that bought these brand new had it easy, they didn't. They're right there with us used owners. The good news is that when a problem is common, there's a lot of people working on it. So there's a lot of solutions. Glass half full. It's all about perspective. Some very smart people have made more robust parts to go inside the double Vanos system. That makes it more reliable and more durable. I installed them in my car after the first 40,000 miles I'd put on it. That included 3 drift days. It held up really well until it didn't. But by doing those upgrades, you are just finding the weak points and reinforcing them. And there are a lot of people that have put literally hundreds of thousands of miles on their E46 M3s. After doing some necessary reinforcements, they hold up really well. On a related topic, this car has basically 0 engine mods, at least nothing to increase the horsepower. It's kind of what I want to do when I'm buying a car like this. What it does have are good supporting mods. The radiator has been upgraded, which is a great change. Also, the stock radiators break at about 100,000 miles. It's got better coolant hoses on there. I highly recommend that to anyone that buys one of these because, you know, it needs all the help it can get. What you might have noticed is the strut bar and the camber plates, because this car has a whole lot of suspension parts on it. I don't currently know when the Vanos was last serviced, and the owner of this car has only had it for about 8 months, so he's not sure either. Check the Carfax report. That is available in the Cars and Bids link below. The dealership inspected it this year and said it showed no signs of problems. And let's talk about the rod bearings, because unfortunately with these cars, you also have to talk about the rod bearings. They're known for going bad, especially some of the early cars. This car has no evidence of having them done, but the current owner had a Blackstone Labs report done, which is where they analyzed the oil and looked for metal in it, and it found 0 traces of metal. So it looks like these rod bearings have either been done before or are not having a problem, which is what you want. Look, complicated, yes. Problematic, sometimes. But keep in mind, when this engine came out, it made 333 horsepower from 3.2 liters. The Mustang GT V8 at the time made 260 horsepower. German cars are complicated, but they make a lot of power. It is what it is. The final common severe problem that the E46 M3 is known for is the rear subframe. They were tearing themselves apart. Ooh, they were tearing themselves apart. They were heartbroken. No, actually, it was because they put a very powerful engine in the front and they put wide tires in the back, and then BMW didn't really reinforce the rear subframe to handle that. So over time, the additional load of the engine and the grip would slowly crack the unibody where the rear subframe mounted. It was such a big problem that in 2006, M3 owners got together and class action sued BMW. They resisted for a while and then it was settled 3 years later. The proper fix for this is to weld in metal plates to reinforce where the subframe is mounted to the unibody, and I'm happy to say that this car has had it done. You do that, you're golden. Overall, this car just looks mean. Looks like Darth Vader. If it was your landlord, it would not let you pay late. It wouldn't be cool about it. The jet black paint looks pretty good. There's a few pits in the front and on the side, but overall it's in really good condition. There's brand new molding around the windows. That's really nice. Mine are collapsing in. It's a common problem. It's an expensive, complicated thing to fix. So the fact that that rear window has a really good seal is good. And you know, you have a little bit of carbon dress up and then the black grills on the side and the front. All of that works really well together. Earlier I said this car had some parts my car doesn't, and this is one of them, this rear chassis brace. This will help the car's torsional rigidity. It makes the rear more responsive, sends more of the forces of the road to the suspension, and allows you to dial that in a little bit better. But on the other hand, it removes one of this car's abilities that I really love, which is if you fold the seats down, you can put quite a lot of cargo back here. The only other thing to notice in the trunk is that the rear light housings are like hanging off the back. I have these same backing plates. This is the LED conversion kit, and you can buy the bulbs and the wires and stuff, but sometimes they send you a new backing plate that doesn't really hold all the new wires. Sometimes you try to use the old one, and just like on mine, they don't fit. I don't think this owner did it. I think the previous owner might have done it, but yeah. Now the owner of this car bought it in March of 2023. Yes, it's a quick turnaround, but there's an interesting reason for it. It's not because he doesn't like the car. He actually likes it too much. He wants to buy a cheaper M3 that is in worse condition so he can turn it into a Canyon track car. So this one is just too nice to take to the track. And I gotta say, little pits in the front aside, he's kind of right. One thing I love about these cars, especially as cars get bigger and bigger, is the size. The overall length is 176 inches long. It's shorter than a new M2. It's shorter than a new Honda Civic. But the wheelbase is 107 inches, which is pretty long. That's why the overhangs on the front and rear are really short. So this car feels really stable at speed. It feels really stable in a slide, provided you're doing that at a closed location in a safe way. So it's a great car to drive on the track, on the road. It just does so many things really, really well. And it's a manageable size, but the interior still feels like it has plenty of room. Ergonomically, this car is one of the best I've driven. When you sit back in the seat, you put both your arms on the armrest, you can have your fingertips on the wheel and just cruise. You have great forward visibility because the hood drops away really quickly and is sloped down. This is also before the pedestrian crash standards raised the hood height of so many vehicles. So, you know, think about that. But this car is a great highway vehicle. The inline six is super smooth, so it's really quiet on the highway. If it's stock, this isn't. We'll get to that in a second. And at least in my car, I can get 28 miles per gallon highway unless it's like 105 degrees out. So it's efficient, smooth, quiet. Great grand touring car. And speaking of space, I recently drove the brand new Mustang Dark Horse, which feels gigantic and is much bigger than this car, much harder to see out of. And I literally got out of that car and into my car, and it felt like I had the same amount of interior space. I'm sure it's a little bit bigger, but it didn't really feel like it. So the payoff for owning a gigantic car isn't really there if the interior is not much bigger as well. This car, unlike mine, has the sunroof. Most cars in the US came with that option or were optioned with it. This also has heated seats. It has the premium sound system. This has the nice, I don't remember the term, executive package, fancy package, whatever. Sunroof's cool if you're into that. I never opened mine when I had one on a Jetta. I don't care. I don't care. If I want the air to come in, I'll roll down a window. The sunroof is only a problem if you're tall or you want to wear a helmet because you're gonna drive it on the track. I'm 5'10". This seat is set as low as it goes. Stock seats don't go very low. Aftermarket ones go a lot lower. And if I put a helmet on right now, it would be pressing against the roof. If you're taller than me, it's gonna be really annoying. You're gonna have to lean the seat back a lot. So that's kind of a bummer. But overall, this interior is in pretty damn good shape. All the trim pieces look pretty good. It's really clean in here. This whole center stack looks really nice. You do have a little of this kind of peeling rubber plasti dip stuff. My car did the same thing. You can get a new cup holder replacement for like 48 bucks with brand new plastic. It looks nice. You could replace the center console and you could replace an armrest. It's a little bit pitted out for some reason. Overall, door cards, dashboard, even these plastics that are known for braking, all in really good shape. It's got the doubled-in stereo CD player. The changer has been removed. That's fine. It's Pioneer. It's got the premium sound system. If this is the Harman Kardon sound system mine has, if all the speakers are working, it sounds really impressive and you wouldn't need to change it. 2 of my speakers are broken. But the most important thing is that the interior has a manual transmission, 6-speed. Not the sequential manual gearbox, which was what they call the paddle shifted automatic that came in these cars. I've heard those can be good if they're like tuned and you're driving as fast as possible, but around town they're really clunky. Manual's a manual. This one has a Rogue short shifter on it, which makes the throws short, but when you're in the gear, there's quite a bit of side-to-side slop. I think that means the bushings inside the shifter somewhere are just starting to wear out. My car feels similar and it has a stock shifter. For whatever reason, BMW shifters fall off really quickly. As they age, they get really like soup spoony, you know? So this has short throws this way and they feel really good, but the side to side is just a little bit less accurate than I'd expect from a short shifter. Let's use that truck as a cue to go drive the thing. As I said, this car has a lot of suspension and chassis mods. We have KW suspension coilovers, it has new lower control arms, it's got sway bars, the front strut tower brace, the rear brace, camber plates, I believe, and it has aftermarket engine, transmission, and rear differential bushings. Those can affect things like engine response, vibration in the car, noise in the car, or just how solid everything feels. I mean, ultimately, that's about sending more power to the rear wheels and having less play in the whole system. But it can also lead to a little bit more noise. This car also has, I forgot, a full exhaust system. It's not super low in the front, but I want to be careful. 19-inch wheels, 235s in the front, 275s in the rear. Big rears. Tire company I've never heard of. No offense thrown. They look like All Seasons. These are not PS4s. It's not some really sticky tire. What I'm really analyzing right now is the ride and the alignment. Now, just as we go down this downhill, this straightaway, I can hear what I perceive to be more gear whine. Some of it might be coming from the differential. I think some's from the transmission. Those harder mounts are going to transmit that rotating vibration to you. And this thing has had like the whole drivetrain gone through. It's got the new flex disc, sometimes called a Guibo. Like that stuff's all in good working order. If I get on the gas a little bit, before the exhaust kicks on, you hear a little bit of like a whoo. So that's just some of that gear noise. Exhaust sounds good. It was a little raspy on the way up here, and there's a small bit of drone at like 2,800 RPMs. But really, it's a very specific RPM where you hear that drone. Turn in is nice, corner's really flat, as expected. This thing is, it's rigid. The chassis has been really strengthened, kind of buttressed. Engine revs really smooth, it idled smooth, the AC works. I do have a tire pressure sensor light on. The owner said that has been happening and it's the sensor. It's not running out of air, it's holding air just fine. I have found tire pressure sensors to be really finicky. Sometimes they break when the car is like 6 months old. I like to remove them. This doesn't have any more steering feel than my car. That's something that the E46 doesn't do that great. I was hoping it would be improved in this car with the parts, but look, the steering rack is the steering rack. Unless it's got the ZCP or an aftermarket rack, it's only going to be so good. I can tell that this car is stiffer than mine. Mine is set to like full soft because I daily drive it. This seems like it bounces a little bit more, but it settles those bounces really quickly. This would be a great track setup. So good for that. Brakes are stock, feel fine, no issue there. Engine pulls really strong, and again, it's such a smooth engine. The inline sixes tend to be really well balanced. They transmit very little vibration to the car. The vibration you hear is coming from the differential because of those stiff bushings. This car does feel more responsive. I feel like when I adjust the wheel in the corner, I can feel those changes through the seat. My car has a little bit more flex to it. Some of that is probably the suspension being set a little tighter, and some of it's probably because of the extra bracing. No joke. If you're gonna drive these cars really hard, reinforcing that rear strut tower is a good idea, because even if you reinforce the rear subframe, the forces being put upon a car will find a new weakest link. So adding material can be about increasing the performance and responsiveness of the car, so that way when you send a message to the steering wheel, it gets to the wheels more efficiently. And some of it is about protecting the car from being hurt or damaging itself. 86,000 miles on this car, I'd say it's in pretty damn good shape. Paint looks pretty good, interior looks pretty good. Like, it's a nice car in nice condition, and the mods are well chosen. They've done the right things. Upgrading that cooling system is so important in these. That will make this thing run in any temperature with no problem. I've driven my car in 105, 109 degree temperatures, AC on, and it had zero problems. Feels great. I'm not driving it super hard. It's a car for sale. These cars are quick. I know that 330 horsepower today doesn't seem like a ton. And with how common turbo engines are, 260 pound-feet of torque might not seem crazy. But 0 to 60 in these was like 4.5 seconds. A new M3 is only half a second quicker than that. I mean, half a second is a lot in 0 to 60, but who really cares? Sure, if you race a new M3 above 60, it will start to pull away. But that's actually okay with me, because I think, one, this is fast enough. Two, I'd rather look at the back of that car anyway. This car is making like 100 horsepower per liter. That's not easy or common in the naturally aspirated engine world. 3,400 pounds, little heavy with all these options. You know, these do tend to feel a little heavier than an E46. The bracing helps that responsiveness, helps the car feel a little bit lighter, makes it more agile. The turn-in is nice. These are just really good all-around cars. That's the reputation the M3 has through all of its generations. I think that this is one of the best generations, and it's my favorite of the naturally aspirated ones. I really love the power. I like the way it looks. Looks modern enough inside. The interiors are really strong. You know, the E46, the interiors tend to fall apart a little bit. Headliners fall down. You can't adjust the steering column. They're just not as comfortable or as robust. And then when you jump to the E90, I think the cars feel really big. Amazing engine, amazing sound. This is a special decade. I know these cars aren't perfect, but it's hard to find a car that does as many things as well as a BMW M3 does. It just is. And props to this owner for getting the oil checked, and props to previous owners for doing the reinforcements and adding the parts you need to help these things stay more reliable. That's the kind of E46 M3 you want to get, because if you buy one without those done, you're gonna have to do them anyway. So, if you want even more information about this car, or you want to look at a lot of high-res photos of individual parts and pieces, click the link below to take you to carsandbids.com.